Thank you very much, Thomas, for this kind introduction. So he has said already everything what I wanted to say at the beginning. What I wanted to say is to thank you for the invitation and thank you for coming in such big amount. I was not expecting that this is such a big room, but this is good for me and I hope for you as well. Okay, so maybe we should start with the first slide, please. Okay, so this is the topic of our meeting today. So we will talk about running out of time, so about being in a hurry, about regulations, about restrictive norms, and about test tours. What that means actually, I don't know if it attracted you to come to this presentation. I hope so as well. Okay, restrictive process. Let me sample a bit the audience and tell me who has ever worked in restricted process. Hands up. Okay. Quite some people here. I'm glad to see this. Okay, and tell me, how many of you are the testers? Hands up. Okay, developers? Oh, a bit less. And project managers? Okay, one. Or maybe two. This is great. Actually, I have noticed that not too many of you have worked in restrictive processes, but the method which I will show you, if it works in a restrictive process, then you can very easily apply it to your testing as well. So talking about restrictive process, for those who don't know what it is, basically after ISTQB Foundation, everyone should be familiar, but I will refresh the memory and tell you that restrictive process, which applies to automotive spies, medical spies, and avionics, has to contain all of these hashtags all together. So, what we have here. Documentation. Does anybody want to have a good documentation in your project? Hands up. Everyone, that's great. But we have to do reviews. Do we like to perform reviews? Yeah, 1, 2 people, great. But of course, there is a bit tricky thing and hard. We need to have evidences that we have performed our work. We have to perform audits. So we have external company which tells, okay, you do this correct or not correct. That's hard sometimes, difficult questions. But SPICE as well is about the structuring of our work, about our documentation, whatever it is. We have to give outcomes. We have to do base practices, not mixed with best practices. Traceability, we have to have there. We need consistency. Test strategy has to be there. We need to do approvals and problem resolution, which is sometimes very hard and complex. We also have change request. Yes, also we have it. We perform risk assessment. We deal with requirements, testing levels, versioning, where to know, where to find the things, right? Information. And test environment. It doesn't have to be necessary there, but at least if it exists, if it has to exist, it has to be documented very well. So this is about the restrictive process. And these processes are applied to devices or to the software which is running on our roads. So this is automotive spies, which exists in medical equipment. This is also for our health and safety. And avionics. I do not have to explain everyone or convince that it has to be done according to the regulations. Okay, this slide, maybe it's some of you are familiar with this one. This is what restrictive process is about. We have to fulfill the most important elements in this process. That means, this is really high. This is bidirectional traceability. That means that all the artifacts that we create in our project, in development, requirements, development, testing, and so on, have to be linked all together. So I have to find a way from the test run or test result until the highest level of requirement. And the second thing, this is consistency, which means that we cannot create the test case which should be applied to or should verify the software requirements. We cannot link not actually link, but to create the content which will test another level. So for instance, system or software architecture. It has to be precisely on software level. Okay, so this is already quite complicated. By the way, showing the previous slide with all these hashtags, I sometimes think that we would like to have it. Actually, this is a contest, so if anybody takes part, do this now. So basically, when we see all these hashtags, I think that they should exist in every process, in every project that we perform. Why? Because it is easy to find the artifacts, because they are linked all together, right? It is nice to have requirements, just like you have showed me up, because we know what our system does. But unfortunately, we do not do this. We like it. We would like to have it, but it's quite effort-consuming, and this is correct. So we have some challenges when we do the restrictive process activities. Do you know what can be? I will help you. Okay. So first of all, we need to create the consistent specification. Everything has to be precisely corresponding to the requirements. We need to perform the requirements analysis. Okay, we do this at every project, actually, but here even more. We need to perform the reviews. One person only liked it. Also, we have to deal with changes. Actually, this is changes. Changes is marked with asterisk, meaning that restricted process actually shouldn't have too many changes, but it does, and we have to be also prepared for those. But what happens when we perform the changes, or when we notice that somebody has changed his mind because of whatever reason? We have to extend the test scope, we have to perform modifications, and after all, we need to test it. So we come naturally to the point that we have late test executions because of these changes, or because we have got the test package late. What else? Time pressure. It is always there in every project, right? We have to perform risk analysis. Maybe those who have worked in this kind of processes maybe have taken part also in so-called risk control board activities. This is very, I wanted to say boring, but it's very long activity in time, because we have to look at each and every requirement or each and every item that was about to be fixed, and we have to assess this risk. Do we do this Can we afford it, and so on and so on? What kind of how much it affects our product or project, because we have two types of risks. And finally, we have bug fix and regressions. So when we have all these challenges, actually, we may come to the problem that we do not test enough early. But okay, let's get to this point later. From restrictive process, it is very important that we have the strategy. Sorry, we have to have it. We have to have it written. It has to comply with regulations. So for instance, when you pick medical spice, which is based on ISO 62304 norm, you have to go chapter by chapter, look for these base practices, so what kind of activity I have to perform, and you have to write it down. How will you do this? How will you apply the test data? How will you read this data? How will you store the results? How will you do the risk analysis? You have to describe all of them in this document. So this must be. Okay, so look, a lot of things I have said already, and we still are not testing. So we still have to, we are at the moment of defining the strategy, about defining how we will do this, about this description of each and every single element in our project. So we lose our chance if you are not testing. That means our product is of unknown quality, isn't it? So we lose a chance for early testing. How can we change it potentially? Let's return back to the slide. Of course, this will appear still, I think, 3 times. So we'll remember this. There is a question, how can we modify our activities in order to, so in other words, how these, which elements from this list are dependent on us directly? What do you think? Can we have any influence on consistent test specification? We are testers. We take part in grooming sessions, in define the requirements, because we say, okay, this is testable and this is not. But can we somehow influence this? Maybe it's hard because we have to create those. We can speed up by extending of the number of testers. So let's say, in a bad word, the headcount. But not much we can do there. Can we perform requirements analysis faster? Maybe yes. But if we do something fast, we may have some problems to slip out from our attention. Can we do faster reviews? Of course we can do. Of course we can multiply the number of people working on it. But it's still not testing yet. Okay, can we somehow influence the changes that appear? Here is already something that we could do potentially. Also, for late test execution, because we have awaited complete functionality, maybe we can test it in pieces, in parts. Maybe. Okay, time pressure, we cannot influence it anyway. We can negotiate the contracts, but not really possible. I mean, not really often done and not expectable. Risk analysis. Can we do this faster? It's similar like reviews or requirements analysis. I don't think so. We can simply cancel the meetings, but this is not the case. We cannot do this. Bug fix and regressions. Okay, here, maybe we can also provide some input or our effort that we can do it faster. So I have marked in red these potential elements that we could speed up or modify our activities to do it better. Means faster. Okay. Again, the same slide from before, but here I would like to stress the word early, the word early. So we want to do it earlier. We know exactly that in restrictive processes, we need to perform all the tests we have defined. But just imagine that if somebody at the release time finds the bug, the testers are really stressy at the moment of release, because what will happen if we will find the bug? We have to restart our tests, right? Have you ever restarted the release candidate testing? Hands up? Okay. So this is true, what I say, you see? Okay. What are potential options? Usually when I define the test strategy or I do the tailoring, do the reconnaissance of the project, because somebody says, Robert, I think something is going wrong with our project, please give us some recommendations. Then I create a list of options that I can potentially use. Maybe you do the same, unintentionally even. But what we can do, first one, which came to my mind when I created this presentation, is, I mean to write it down because we did it in the past, to do the bring-up tests. What that means, I got the hardware on my desk, and I would like to connect it just before even the specification is ready. Yeah? Just to start it up and to see how it works. Maybe some interesting things will come up and will tell me, I need to apply something more actions to test approach in test strategy document. Because we do not have any interfaces. Let's say we expected UART, but we have only something else. So we have to figure out how to do this. So this may potentially bring us to the faster to the solution. Okay? So this is actually the test approach which I mentioned as well. So they are all together. Then we have test sessions with developers. Let's do the test sessions with developers early, before they finish or when they just create the software. Why not? Maybe we could already do this partial feature testing earlier. Okay, we have to perform this at the end of our release time, but maybe we could do this even before. Because if there are no errors at the release time, because we have discovered them before, we potentially do not have to restart our regression, right? And we do not have these people who has mentioned, yeah, I had to restart it. So we do a quality assurance activity here, not quality control. Yeah? So we prevent the bugs to appear at the end of the release in the software in general. Okay, then we could do mob testing or ensemble testing. This is equivalent. So we perform the tests in a group of several people. I don't know if you have heard about this. It's a very effective method of getting familiar with the software, with the product. And it's very effective. Smart regression testing. We do not have to perform the full regression when something has changed, and we can do this earlier. Frequent bug triaging. So we meet together, we discuss about the errors that we have found so far, and maybe some new ideas will come up, or we could trigger some new ideas how to approach a certain feature for testing. Okay? Then we have another option, which is called parallel level testing. Has anybody tried to start system tests and integration tests or module tests? Hand up. Okay. So probably you know already that there is a danger that if we discover the problem on the higher level, then we have to move back. Or we have to modify the scope of the tests which we have performed so far on the lower levels of testing. Because it doesn't make sense to perform any tests on system level if we still have the problem on the integration level, because it will not work anyway. So there is a danger. But we can do this. There is an option. Just like with Google design thinking, you are not, so far, we are not judging. Okay, I did it at the moment, but normally we do not judge at the beginning which option is good or bad. We just do this and, put it on the paper. And later on, we are figuring out which is better or which is a bit less. Okay, then we have team organization adjustments. Yeah, sometimes maybe we should shift one person to another group to modify it a bit in order to have it a better effectiveness of the team overall. We should maybe do frequent risk assessments. So do not wait until we have a full package of risks that we have identified. Just do it earlier. With the small packages, people will not be bored sitting all the day on this stuff. Then we have team mindset. It was mentioned at the beginning, in the opening of the conference. Of course, team mindset, the tester's mindset is a very important thing here. And if the tester likes or has a simply likes the product and wants to test it, wants to have a quality squeezed up from the product, it's always better. We are not talking about working in overtime. It's just about the way of doing the things. And the last one is prioritization. Of course, we start from this one always. So this is nothing new here. So you see a lot of options here. And now, when I look at this, what we have? A lot of these lines have a word test. What that means, that all of these activities, which are marked here with tests, means that we can perform these activities much faster. And now let's think about this. What could be potentially the best method of performing the tests? We have it already, that we have to perform the tests, but which kind of tests we should perform to do it efficiently, fast? I've created such a table which covers 3 types of tests from point of view of specification and also activities type. So we have scripted tests. That means you have to perform this, and the expected result is that, and you have steps defined, so you perform this manually, right? Next one is automated tests, which is, it should be one-to-one copy of that one. It's not always like that, but let's say that it should be from point of view of restrictive processes. And then we have exploratory tests in a special type approach. So what we have here, we have implementation effort. For scripted tests, okay, we have to sit, analyze the requirements, write it down, and it is marked as medium. This is my own scale, so if you have other opinion, you can always do and tell it here. But let's assume this scale. So this is medium. On scripted tests, in comparison to automated tests, it's less, because if I want to perform the automation, well, it is a costly thing to do the automation, you know. Okay, for exploratory tests, this is none. There's no effort. I simply perform the tests which came to my mind. Let's wait with a precise description a bit later. Then we have, from point of view of backhand effectiveness. Okay, for exploratory tests, I tell you, this is very effective. We have introduced this stuff in a couple of projects, and it was, I had extreme here. Yeah, I put it extreme. Automated tests are extreme, but only for regressions. That naturally shows that automated tests can be performed in for a particular goal. Yeah? But actually, backhand for no regression type goal is very low. We do not discover too much in this case. And scripted tests is more or less the same, Let's say that for scripted tests, the effectiveness is a bit less. I'm just wondering at the moment why I haven't put the same, but maybe it will come to my mind later. That means that I also, that building the test strategy is not always 1-0. It's always depending on the project, and I'm not really sure what was here. But it doesn't matter here at the moment. Let's take a look at execution speed. Of course, automated tests are the fastest. We don't have to care about this. Of course, it depends on the test level, because somebody can say, yeah, Robert, you can find the things which can be tested very, very slowly for some systems. I agree. But in generally, they are fast. Scripted tests are, well, manual, so it's not that I classify this as low. And exploratory tests are a bit faster, because you do not have to perform the procedure step by step. And sometimes there is an effect that the testers are skipping over some steps. Please tell me if you have ever had such a situation, that you have just skipped 2 lines of steps because they could be combined. Have anybody done it? Okay. Yeah, so some people. Glad to see that. Really. But this is true. This is true, that we skip this. But that makes the exploratory tests a bit faster, because this is allowed here. Great point. Okay, for partial feature, if the tests are partial feature friendly. So if I have a feature which is not complete, can I already test it? Well, for automation this is 0 here, because if the feature is incomplete, then we cannot do this, because the test does as much as we have programmed this. For manual test, the scripted one, well, we can skip some parts, and this is good. For exploratory testing, it is actually not the case. It is extremely feature incomplete friendly, but needs absolutely the perfect, I would say, information about the delta of the development. If you do not know what has changed, it will behave as the same as scripted tests. So this is not extreme, it is medium. Okay, the last one, pre-last, resilient to pesticide effect. When we talk about scripted tests and automated tests, this is absolutely not. After some time, we'll say, yeah, if we are not talking about the regression, this does not reveal any bugs at all, but not the exploratory tests. Each time we create a new scenario, but of course, we as well have to engage our creativity. And then product learning as you test. For 2 first types of tests, not at all, because they are just being executed. But at the last one, and you already may know about this, that it is the extreme. So, looking at time pressure, standards, tools, how this can be combined with the test strategy. So we have seen at the moment that exploratory testing are maybe here the most effective to perform the tests faster, but not a typical test execution, exploratory test, like clicking here and there and see what will happen. Okay, this is good, this is not good. I would like to propose you a method which is very well structured. The method is not new. This is, you can find a lot of information here in this exploratory software testing tips, tricks, tools, and techniques. It's work with a book which explains how it was done in some companies which were dealing with manual testing and they wanted to speed up. Okay, how it works. The approach is the following. We are the tourists on the map of the features of the system, of the software. Then it has to be time-boxed. If we talk about the creativity coefficient or the creativity itself, we cannot be creative all the time, right? Our brain will be creative for a certain amount of minutes, maybe. And here it is expected that we are not working on this test session more than maximum 2 hours per day. Normally, this is not more than 1 hour. Session is complete with what? Not with a verdict that it is passed or failed, because we cannot refer to the requirements directly. But we finish it with a comment and, of course, the bug. For sure, the bug. Very rare it is a situation when there is no bug discovered. Okay? Then, of course, recording is recommended because we would like to reply our actions if something goes wrong. The test scope is defined on daily basis, so we know the delta of the development precisely. So we know in which areas we can move around. Yeah. So this is the test scope. Then we have tour selection. Okay, the tours. I will show you on the next slide the types of tours. You will see the names, interesting stuff as well. It depends on also on the high level of exploration, because the high level of exploration can be different. Can be freestyle, can be based on user stories, can be based on a specific target that we would like to achieve. Can be performed on feedback, so it is driven by the feedback, and on the history. So somebody tells us, yeah, in this area we had historically the most of the problems, then we can enter into this area and perform the tests. Okay, test package can be incomplete. Take a look at this one. So we can test incomplete feature. This is a great point. And then the source, which I mentioned at the beginning. This is all what you need to know about the approach. And now take a look at this. There are 32 testing tours, which names are quite self-explanatory, but I will give you some examples as well. I think in the book there are 34. I missed some of them, maybe because I have never used them really. Anyway, the bold text is, there are tours which are most often used in the past, in my past projects, some of them. Let's see, couch potato tour. Do you know what is couch potato? It's someone who is sitting in front of the television, comfortably on the couch, and is switching the television programs. Zero energy. How can we transform this action to testing? Anybody? Some idea? So I will tell you. If we have the task of performing the tests with default values in the fields, we can use this kind of testing tours. So we do not fill anything in, we just go to the next window, and then bam, there is a crash. And that means that we have performed a very nice test. By the way, integration test, when we talk about the integration of the modules. Okay? Another thing is guidebook tour, or the guidebook tour. That means that we have to concentrate on the most important features in our system. So as we read in the guidebook, okay, you have to visit this place and that place because you have paid for the tour, so you would like to visit them. And the same way will go to the software. If the customer pays a lot of money for giving, for instance, there is some program dedicated for printing. You should have printing there available, no? Of course. Another one. Obsessive-compulsive tour. That means that we press the button all the time. We do not believe that we have seen the changes. We press once again. And then comes the desynchronization of some timers, and you are at home. You have found the bug. This is a very often used tool, by the way, in many teams. Okay, some examples these were. Okay, so how can we put in the strategy of the restricted process something that is not restricted? Because we have a lot of freedom there. We can do this. We can do this. Take a look. First of all, what is the most important, you have to put it in the test strategy. So it has to be there, written, how we will do this, how we will define our approach. We have to map the feature with the test tool. So we create a document where we say, okay, this feature will be potentially usable for this tool. And we have this kind of document. We do not perform create the list of the steps, but it's really enough. Then, this is really great. We could map even with the quality attributes a testing tool and the feature. So we have done it in one project, and it looked like, okay, this feature we really cannot map to, or this tool we cannot map to any of the quality attributes, but only for this particular product. So this can differ. But this is a very nice connection with the regulation. And we can create a test run and test report template, and we are done. We have to perform the test, but before we have to get the dev status, we have to define the scope, and we report the bug or anomaly as fast as we can. So fast feedback. And we need to rotate the tools. Also the people, because they think of testing the feature in all the time. So there is actually a small element of pesticide. So maybe I should change my table after our today's meeting. But if we only do this, we are done. And of course, you have to perform the release scope as usual for this kind of processes. So you cannot skip it over. Okay? This slide is actually not for fully understanding now. It's just for giving you the information where we can apply this kind of structured approach for exploratory testing as one of the methods selected for speeding up the response. We can support them, I mean developers, in testing. Here we can do. We can perform the regression, smart regression. That means that we select only a given scope and to give, look, how fast we will give the feedback. Here is immediate. Here is right after the regression. This is cool. We can go further. We can go further with, if everything is done here, because it was on the first prio, we go to the second prio, and we have a test design. We can use exploratory testing for test design. It's a really great thing that we can do here by having the information even from the previous activity. Okay, for review, nothing. Then for test automation, yes, because when we do the bring up tests, we already can be much smarter. Okay, level manual testing. This is obvious, right? So we can have quite earlier than before the information about the potential bug. So this bug will not go finally to the release testing. Here is a slide which shows sprints in a time frame. So we have okay, sprint 0. There is some preparation phase. We cannot do too much. Maybe only this bring up test. So maybe it should be also extended. But we can perform. Take a look at this one. We have first feature complete. First part of the feature complete, and we have already starting point for exploratory testing and bug register monitoring, because this is the key. We can start it and look when it is finished at the end of our release. Yeah? So we can perform this kind of activities throughout our full project cycle. Okay? Well, talking about the boost effect, we have, this is a measure. Imagine, system was really stable. There was nothing discovered by the scripted tests, but still the team was able to discover 50 bugs per sprint for 4 weeks, of course. It was a bit longer, with 4 testers, by only performing the exploratory tests by 1 hour per day. Imagine what effectiveness in comparison to the time. Then, 1 or 2 hours of not really diving into a restrictive process with heavy process. They are just having a kind of relax. Not always, but in general, yes, this is a kind of relax. Then the test sessions with developers. That was completely moved to another dimension. They built the relationship with the developers. They could even, have some jokes about the developed software and the bugs that they have found. That was really insane result. And this is actually the balance for the restrictive process. It is not always so pink, as we say in Polish. We need to change the tours sometimes. And we have to perform fast bug fixing. Because if we do not perform the bugs fast enough and take a look, it's not easy task because it's 50 bugs per sprint. So we had to apply also the issue resolution problem process very well, to be effective. Because if the bug is not solved, then it can mask other bugs which we could potentially discover. I'm still not satisfied with this 50. Okay, and this is manual, not all of them. Testers like it and are aiming at. So, what depended on us? It was before in red, now it's in green. So it's again the same slide, you remember that. So we can brace, we do not afraid of changes anymore because we can be still fast. We do not perform delayed test executions, and we can influence the bug fix and regressions. And what is very important here, this is added value. I have said already about the relations with developers. This is, the greatest thing, I would say. And the knowledge that we can use from test execution, from exploratory test execution, we can use it for test design. And so we achieve the better coverage. 34 seconds to go. And I'm on the last slide. Thank you very much. If you, I tell you, if you even would like to try this, I do not tell you that you have to do this, but if you want to try this at least, you potentially may be very satisfied. So then just drop me email to tell me that it works fine, or if it's not working fine in your conditions. Thank you very much for the attention, and welcome to questions.
Wow, thank you very much, Robert. Very interesting talk. You have earned the very first question in our stream posted to the Discord platform.
Really?
Yes. So thank you very much to Marta for posting the question. I understand the power of exploratory testing, but a large number of bugs found in this stage might be an indicator that scripted testing isn't really covering all business processes. What is your opinion on this?
Yes, if we perform the tests at the late stage, if we perform the exploratory testing in the late stage of the development, then yes, Marta is absolutely right. So that's why we should move the balance with exploratory testing to the beginning. So then this will have a big influence on the test design and will potentially eliminate that behavior.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So now let's turn to the audience. Would anyone else like to raise a question in person rather than through the platform? Don't be shy. Robert loves the interaction, I can tell. He's a showman up here. Okay, well, since we do have maybe one more minute.
There's one.
There's one. Where do we have it? Oh.
There's one.
Just behind the light. I couldn't see you.
Yeah, the question is, what was the team that you were mentioning? I mean, there were junior testers, senior, normal roles.
Initially, they were juniors, but as the project went progressing, then it was mid-years and seniors, because it was a long-term project. And interestingly, I was thinking at the beginning that the exploratory testing will not have such a big impact on our product at a later stage, but it was not. It was still maybe not precisely the 50 bugs per sprint, but it was kept on the similar level all the time.
Okay, thank you for the question and for the answer. I think we have time for one more question. All right. If not, I did have one, but it was more related to the introduction. You mentioned that you like setting up techie projects around the home. You test and debug these in your spare time. Could you tell us about one interesting such project?
Well, basically, this is for home automation. So when I bought the house, I was never thinking about creating the electronics inside. But after all, when my core is electronics and analog electronics, and then automation, programming microcontrollers, I thought that it will be very effective and low-cost approach. And I must say that there I use a lot of exploratory for myself. It's mainly with Home Assistant and IoT devices.
Very cool. All right, thank you very much for that. So let's give a warm thank you once more to Robert for his very interesting talk.
Thank you.